You're now live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special board meeting on July 20th, 2026. I want to start us off in a good way by recognizing and acknowledging both the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work together this evening. Welcome, trustees, and welcome to our partners around the table this evening. Trustees, I'm going to turn to you to approve this evening's agenda. So if I may have a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Carmichael, seconded by trustee Bayo. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda? I understood that we might be wanting to add a section on trustee questions. Is that still the case? Trustee Painter, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, apologies. I had mentioned that, but failed to follow up. I would appreciate a trustee's question section.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so you're moving that amendment to the agenda, looking for a seconder. Trustee Carmichael, seconding. Any discussion on the motion to amend the agenda by adding a trustee questions portion to the agenda? Normally that would just come into the superintendent's report as one of the sub items, just for clarification. Okay, hearing no discussion, I'm going to call the question on the amendment to the agenda with a show of hands. And trustees, if you wouldn't mind leaving your hands up so I can just record your votes properly. So just bear with me. Trustee Bayo, I didn't get your vote. Are you in favor? Yeah, okay. All right, that's unanimous. Thanks, trustees. Appreciate your patience. Okay, so we have an agenda as amended. I'm going to call the question on the amended agenda, subject to any other changes or amendments that anyone would like to move. Trustee McNally, did you have an amendment to the agenda you wanted to move? No? Okay. All right, I'm going to call the question then, folks. All those in favor of the agenda as amended with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is my chair's report under B1. Just had a couple of items that I wanted to share and acknowledge. First, wanted to say it was an absolute pleasure to represent the board at this year's Pride Parade on Sunday, the 12th of July, with my colleague, Trustee Carmichael. It was great to see a few staff members and some students out. Lots and lots of participation in this year's Pride Parade. It was a lot of celebration, a lot of joy. So thanks to everybody that was able to join. Also wanted to acknowledge that we have sent out a save the date for a partners table meeting first week of August on the 6th at 6:30. Just wanted to flag for the board and also for our partners that are here tonight that we're hoping to have the meeting invite and an agenda circulated to you this week. In anticipation of that, we also had included in the agenda tonight some of the policies that we will be discussing during that partners table meeting, just to give you a bit of chance to review some of what we'll be looking at early. And so that is also included on tonight's agenda. And that's it for me. So I'm going to move us along to the superintendent's report. And this is C1 superintendent's report. First item is Willows Childcare and Parking Lot Update Project FAQ. Superintendent Whitten, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Duncan. So you'll see on pages 4 through 7 of the pack-up that there's a childcare and parking lot upgrade project FAQ as requested. We also have Director Marnie Vistison Harwood here to answer any questions that may come. I know that the project has moved along and I think some fantastic things are happening there. So I don't know if there's specific questions that you would like answered or if the FAQ satisfies that.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Whitten. Trustees, any questions and follow-up? Yeah, Trustee Kwan.
Yeah, I just know in the FAQ, sorry, through the chair, in the FAQ, I think we had discussed trying to save 2 trees. I just wanted to see if, as the work has progressed, if we were able to actually save 2 of them.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Superintendent, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. If I may, through the chair, pass this to Marnie. Yes, I believe that we saved 2 of the interior trees as we counted 1 through 4, the 2 inside trees, but she has more up-to-date information to share.
Yes, thanks. Close. We did save 2 of the trees, but they're the 2 outside trees. So, yep, so close. Yeah, but they're 2 saved. There's 2 that are now taken down.
Thank you very much. Glad to hear that we were able to save 2. That's good news. And if we could just clarify too, that in addition to the 2 trees that were saved, there is that the plan to continue to plant some more, were they red oaks? Is that still the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to plant 2 red oak trees, and part of the parking lot upgrade, we're going to make the accessible spot actually up to code, so it's accessible. And we're going to do a retaining wall in the front, so the parking kind of slopes into the street. Will make it a lot safer for the people who are parking.
That is wonderful news. Thank you very much to both of you for bringing those updates to the board, and really good news that piece of work was so successful. Okay, anything else? I'm just going to turn, if I sort of raced by our partners, apologies. Did you have any questions about the update? Okay. I'm going to move us on then to our next item. And again, this is superintendent's item. And I mentioned it earlier, but Superintendent, did you want to say anything in respect to C1B, the board policy update?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, thanks for bringing that forward. I believe that as per the request, the request is in preparation for the August 6th Partners of SD 61 meeting. I would anticipate that before it coming, or after it comes to the partners table, it would then move to ed policy, any discussions and decisions that were made, and then to a future board meeting, public board meeting. So I think the intent of it in the pack up today was to allow for preparation time before the August 6th meeting, and to outline the work that had occurred and the work that still needs to occur at board direction with regards to any policy revisions moving forward.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Trustees, did you have any thing to add or any questions that you wanted to ask in relation to this item? Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
No, just a quick thanks to our staff for putting this together. Really appreciate the having the old policies included, so we can take a good look and see see if there's anything in there that maybe need to include it in anything new, or just get an idea of where we're at with those policies and where they fit in. So really appreciate that was included.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. One just brief point of clarification, and I certainly could have missed this, but I wondered whether or not we could get a copy of the I think it was called the 13 fundamental or key policies that were mentioned in the memo. And if I missed it, my apologies.
May I respond, Chair?
Oh, please do.
Okay, thank you. So the 13 core policies are referenced in the BCSDA document. And in the memo, it mentions we started to have a conversation on that, but nothing was created or agreed upon. So it was a discussion at the start about what those 13 core policies may be based on other districts, but we hadn't had any discussion on what those ones were or how they would come to be. So it was very initial in our discussions, but not yet developed.
Thank you, Superintendent. So just to clarify then, the BCSTA doesn't have a recommendation about what the 13 core policies should be. It's more about boards of education thinking through that idea of 13 core policies.
They do. They have, sorry, through the chair, they do have core policies that they would recommend based on what's included in the School Act. And they've given some supporting documents of different districts that people may wish to look at as a reference. But in our district, we had not yet moved in that direction.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. Is it possible to get a copy of that recommendation from BCSTA? I think that might help also ground the work for our partners meeting.
Yes, I will look at the policy review for boards of education document. I think it's in there. I think they list on one of the pages the different policies that they would recommend as potential ones to review. But if I can make it more simpler, I will do that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Trustees, was there anything else in relation to this particular update before I move us along? Okay. Okay, now we added an item around trustee questions. So before I move us on to the next piece, I just want to clarify, we didn't actually say where that would go, but I'm going to assume that it'll be at the end of the superintendent's report. Correct me if I'm making an incorrect assumption. Secretary Treasurer, is that where you added it when we changed the agenda? Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so whenever you're ready, Superintendent, let's just go back up and just double check. I believe that will be our next item then. And so, trustees, this is for you, for the superintendent, if we have any questions. Trustee Painter, you added this item. Did you have a question under trustee questions that you wanted to ask?
Apologies, Chair. Yes, too many screens. My question has to do with the reporting of student interactions with police. At our previous board meeting, we requested the reporting since the suspension of that policy to, well, we requested the an update on interaction since that time. And I was just wondering what the status of that report was at this point.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. So just wondering what the status of the retroactive reporting and whether it's possible to do the retroactive reporting. Superintendent, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that a memo went to the board on that, and that going back in capturing that reporting would not be possible. But under the safety plan, there is a reporting mechanism, both when schools call 911 as well as non-emergency. So that information is captured, and we collected that toward the end of June of this year.
Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Just for clarification, does that also include the records of police visiting schools, presentations, events, that sort of thing, so that we can actually get a full understanding of what types of interactions that are being scheduled and are occurring, not simply the emergency response ones?
Through the chair, the safety plan outlined that it would capture the two areas, the non-emergency calls and the 911. So the safety plan did not outline that it would capture other times where the police had visited.
Okay, so just to clarify then, so when there's an interaction between police and an individual student, that is recorded. Likewise, if there is a 911 or a non-emergency call, that is recorded. But something like a presentation or maybe attendance at an assembly and so on is not recorded. Is that correct, Superintendent?
It wouldn't be captured in that sort of report, but all visitors that enter into the school are meant to sign in at the office. So it would be captured or should be captured in that element. But under the safety plan, those visits would not have been captured.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, trustees, any other trustee questions before I move us on? I don't see any hands, but because I'm having to cycle through various screens just to capture everybody, please do just stop me and let me know if I've missed you. Okay, so I don't hear anybody, so I'm going to move us on to the next item, which is the Secretary Treasurer's report. The first item is under C2A, poll vote results. Secretary Treasurer, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. So the first poll vote result is related to the amendment to the June 15, 2026 budget motion. At that meeting, the board carried a motion to restore budget to 3 different areas, music, pathways and partnerships, and ECEs. Once that was reviewed by staff in relation to staffing and using updated budget amounts, the numbers needed to be revised. And so a poll vote was conducted to change the numbers to reflect the actual budget impact. The motion through poll vote was carried unanimously. And one thing I will add is that as part of the motion, it does reference that we would report back the 4, or I think there's 4 different sources of funding for this, the first motion that was carried. And we'll be bringing that information back to the board in September at the regular board meeting.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, just looking to my colleagues if there's any questions around that item before the Secretary Treasurer moves on. Okay, Secretary Treasurer, whenever you're ready.
So the second poll vote results is related to the Caledonia Truck Turnaround Statutory Right-of-Way bylaw 3rd reading. The board did not approve 3 readings of the bylaw at the June 15, 2026 meeting, but it did carry the first and second readings in that meeting. And so the 3rd reading was conducted by poll vote. That poll vote closed on June 26th. The results are that the 3rd reading was defeated, and the effect of that is that the bylaw was not adopted.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Great. Any questions around that before I move us on to the next item? Seeing any, so Secretary Treasurer, go ahead when you're ready with the next item.
So the next item on the agenda is in relation to the 2026 trustee election. The first item is the trustee election information request. And so at the June 15, 2026 meeting, the board tabled the motion that would agree to have all 3 readings of the bylaw in that meeting. The motion was tabled pending provision of additional information from staff. On June 22nd, 2026, staff received the list of information that was requested. In the memo in the agenda package, the list is included there. The deadline to provide that information was July 1st, and the information was provided directly to trustees on June 30th. I'll just note that all of the information that would be publicly available at this time is linked through the memo to the district website. So there is a page on the district website related to trustee electoral areas, so you can find that information there.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. All right, trustees, I'm just going to again open the floor to you. You'll have noted the information in the pack-up, the publicly available information in the pack-up. Trustee Kwan, do you want to kick us off?
I do have a question. I just wanted to see if we wanted to open it to partners first.
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea. Why don't we do that? So just providing partners with an opportunity to, although this is not something we're voting on, these are information only items, but if there's anything that you wanted to add or comments that you wanted to put forward in relation to this item, please feel free. And so this is the item, just as a reminder, this is the item that one of the information items that the board passed by motion on the June 15th board meeting, where we asked staff to provide some background information and some other items to help the board get up to speed on what had occurred in relation to the trustee elections and the changes made to those. Okay. Yeah. Hi. Good evening, Anna. Very nice to see you. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
So what will the next steps be then?
Yeah, so
Apologies, I have my 5-year-old here, so I have to keep my mic off right now.
no problem.
Mhm.
We've all been there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the next step is for the board, so this was an information items to help the board get up to speed. The next step in terms of, we'll be discussing the next step in terms of the next item on the agenda, and the bylaw that the board tabled at the June 15th meeting in order to first get up to speed with the changes that were made to the trustee electoral areas. And so beyond the information that the board has now received and has had an opportunity to review, I'm really at the will of my colleagues in terms of what possible next steps might be.
Okay. I did. So all partners collaborated on the trustee electoral area system. And does this mean that you will not be moving forward with it?
Just to clarify, so the changes that were made first and foremost, there was a recommendation from the official trustee to the minister, and then the minister passed an order, and that order is what changed the trustee electoral areas and the membership of the board for the 2026 election. And so that is not something that the Board of Education has any mandate to change. I think certainly the information that we've received about the process and the timeline and so on, certainly I think raises concerns for me. And I'll let my colleagues speak for themselves in relation to that. But in terms of next steps, it's not for the board can't do anything about it, so to speak. That's a decision of the minister, and it was made at the recommendation of the official trustee.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, just want to again just pause and before I go to colleagues and just see if there's any other partners that had questions of clarification in relation to this item. Okay, I'm going to then move to trustees. Trustee Kwan, you want to kick us off?
Thank you. Yeah. My question is now twofold after hearing Anna. My understanding was that it was mostly municipalities that were able to collaborate on moving this forward. And so it sounds like partners had a chance to weigh in it as well. And so my question, I guess, would be regarding, how much input all of our partners and municipalities had. But really it comes down to the recommendation letter that was sent to the minister and how that was done, how it was decided on sending that forward. Did you need consensus, or was it kind of just a majority? How did that kind of work to decide to put forward a letter towards the minister? Just curious about that process.
Secretary Treasurer, I think probably you're the best place to speak to the work of the official trustees task force and perhaps the superintendent as well. I think you were both members of it, if I'm understanding the documents we were provided correctly.
Through the chair, I can answer pieces of that and may need to defer to the superintendent for some of it. There were all of the municipalities that were invited, including the regional district, as well as representatives from both Songhees and Esquimalt nations.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, any other thoughts? Yeah, Trustee Kwong, go ahead.
And sorry, yeah, just to follow up regarding, the recommendation letter that was sent to the minister and how that decision kind of came forward to send that recommendation letter, as far as whether we needed consensus or how that worked.
Secretary Treasurer, I'm not sure if you're best placed to answer that question, or Superintendent. Was there a criteria used to decide whether to send forward the recommendation or not? Did the task force have a terms of reference or anything like that?
Through the chair, I don't know if we're going to be able to answer all of your questions in the meeting, but I don't believe there was a terms of reference. And lacking the terms of reference, I don't believe that there was consensus per se. It was a task force that was working with the official trustee in looking at potential options for electoral models.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Any other comments from or questions from trustees in relation to this item? Trustee Carmichael, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wondered, given the timing of this task force, how well parents were consulted, because it was over the summer, if I believe. So I don't know. I'm a parent and I don't spend too much time on school-related things over the summer. So I'm just wondering if VC PAC was involved at all, if correspondence went out to parents, because I'm a parent of SD 61 and I don't remember getting a lot of information.
Thank you, Trustee Carmichael. So again, I'm not sure who to direct the question to, if it's like the Secretary Treasurer or the Superintendent. And then I will also then turn to our VC PAC rep, who's also here tonight. If they would like to share a perspective. Secretary Treasurer, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to refer you to the VC PAC rep as they had removed their mute.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
I can wait. I was just going to say that we don't have a full list of parents, so we kind of circulated the information session to the people who had subscribed to our newsletter and wanted to receive email from VC PAC. But we did ask the district to share that information about the notification about the information to all the parents, and I believe that was done. And then there was an information session held open to whoever could attend in person. But there was no voting by partners and consensus on this, right? So there were definitely different perspectives on this, and it was whatever the task force and the board decided, or the trustee, official trustee decided. As far as I remember.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Secretary Treasurer, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to clarify too that the public consultation event occurred in early September, so it wasn't during the summer. And that was intentional to make sure that the most people as possible were able to attend.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Yeah, as I read the documents, it looks to me like there was a an online feedback form, if that's the right term, Secretary Treasurer. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That was initiated in August and then closed on, I believe it was the 11th of September. So just shortly after that first school week. And then other than that, there was a 2-hour public engagement event during that first week of school. But I don't see anything else in the materials that have been provided to the board, which suggests any other specific engagement or consultation with parents or students or teachers or some other individuals, who are members of our learning community. Is that correct, Secretary Treasurer, or have I missed anything else that would have been part of that consultation?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd have to look through the documents. I did participate, but I wasn't actively working with the official trustee on this, so I would have to look just to recall, look through the documents.
Thank you. Okay. Well, colleagues, just turning to you on this item, if there's any other information, clarification, or comments that you wish to make in respect of this before I move us on. Yeah, Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a comment, and it just it seems procedurally odd to me that an unelected individual, which the official trustee was, can petition the minister for legislative changes. I mean, to me, that implies any one of us can just write to the minister and try and change laws. And I'm just really unhappy with the process.
You, Trustee McNally. Anyone else? I'm just, again, cycling through just to make sure I haven't missed anybody.
I have a question.
Yeah, sorry, and I missed. Oh, yeah.
Ms. Salome, the VCPAC chair. I was wondering if the board will consider the pros and cons to the changes in the electoral system, because the information that was presented did make a case for the benefits of moving to an electoral system. So I don't want to say that maybe the process could have been different or improved. I don't have an opinion about that, but I do think the content of what was shared seemed to basically lean towards, like, there are other jurisdictions that have this electoral system in place, and that it simplifies it for people. It was convoluted how the representatives would work together in a corporate board, and would they represent their jurisdictions or not. That part of it was not very clear. I think to me, and maybe many parents would expect that if a representative is selected for Oak Bay, that they would represent Oak Bay, but that's obviously not the case. But I think that it would be nice to understand, like, what is the board's process for considering the pros and cons, and then sharing that with the stakeholders.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think first and foremost, our request for information about the process and the details of how the decision was made, what the decision was, and why was our kind of initial attempt to get up to speed. And as we are starting to get up to speed and have had the benefit of the materials, both in the public pack-up and some additional materials, I think there's certainly some concerns and I'll speak for myself, some concerns about the outcomes. So not just the process. I think there's certainly some concerns for me about the process that was utilized in terms of it being very short, not providing a lot of opportunity for others that usually are not available over the summertime to weigh in on such a permanent and important decision. affecting, the entire, not just learning community, but the community at large that vote for boards of education in Greater Victoria. I think beyond the sort of process-related issues, I would absolutely agree with Trustee McAnally, who voiced concern about the idea, the sort of legitimacy that can be attached to a process and recommendations coming from an unelected person about an electoral process. That is very concerning to me. I think, too, as you start to delve deeper into the details of all of this, there's certainly some concerns for me about the actual representation and what that means. There seemed to be, in the correspondence that I read, some confusion about what it means to have a trustee at large electoral model, which is the current model. And I think some folks thought that perhaps, or seemed to misunderstand what that means in terms of thinking that that meant that if you lived in a certain area, that you only represent people in that area, when in fact a trustee at large model, it's exactly the opposite. So all 9 trustees represent all communities in Greater Victoria, regardless of where the 9 trustees happen to live. Again, when you start to read the details, one of the other things that stuck out for me was the disparity between the actual number of trustees in the new model and the actual population of the particular trustee electoral areas. So for instance, when you look at the population of Victoria and Saanich, they represent combined over 200,000 people of the approximate 250,000 people in Greater Victoria. So we're talking about, more than 3/4 of the population only having 4 trustees assigned to represent them. That concerns me. And it certainly departs from what I think most people would expect in terms of electoral representation. There's some things like that have come out in informing us about what has occurred here. I think too, the task force, the fact that there wasn't really an opportunity, because again, the materials I read, it suggested that there were 4 meetings of the task force.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that when in Greater Victoria, we've talked about amalgamation and other changes to election rules and representation has been going on for decades. The idea to me that we would make sweeping changes on the back of 4 meetings and a very, very short consultation period, essentially, which amounted to just over a month from the time of the open feedback process online to the 2-hour engagement session. We're talking about just over a month of consultation, again, which primarily occurred over the summer when most of our learning communities, were not available. So it's not that, for me anyway, and again, I'll speak for myself, it's not that there isn't some aspects of the changes that are positive. It's more about the impacts and the fact that this seems to me, on the face of the materials I've read so far, to be something that was done very quickly. I'll assume that it was done to meet a deadline, because of course the deadline to make changes to the 2026 municipal elections as it relates to the board elections was the 30th of September 2025. And so if changes were going to be made, it needed to happen quickly. So the other thing, and again, then I'll turn to my colleagues who I'm sure have their own views, but the other thing that really struck me was that, what prompted this seems to be a couple of municipalities that were concerned about what they viewed as a lack of representation and a historic lack of representation. And again, I'm concerned that that view may not be entirely accurate, just from the perspective of a trustee at large model. Nobody, regardless of where you live, only represents that community. So I live in Victoria, and I don't come to my position as a member, like a trustee member at large, thinking that I only represent people in Victoria. I know that my job is to represent all community in Greater Victoria, regardless of where I live. Where I live is irrelevant. So yeah, so that's just off the top of my head from the reading that we've done since we were provided this information, some of my concerns. Trustees. Yeah, I saw some hands, so let me pause. Yeah, Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you. Shauna was ahead of me, so how about Shauna and then me?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you helping me out. Yes, thank you. Shauna, go ahead. Welcome. Sorry, I'm trying to find you here. Here you go. Whenever you're ready, you go ahead. And then
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised by your timeline because it was discussed for almost a year. There was consultation with the stakeholders. There was consultation with parents. It wasn't over the summer. So I'm not sure what you're reading where the timeline is like months. My recollection is that the minister went to the special trustee. It wasn't the other way around, that it was brought forward by members in the community that were going to the minister, and then the minister talked to the special trustee. So being at the meetings, I feel the timeline is definitely off. Just saying it was pushed through within a month or through the summer. So I just wanted to state that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shauna. Yeah, we're just getting our information from what's on the website. And yeah, appreciate that we were not part of the process at the time. So thank you for sharing your perspective. So sorry, Trustee McNally, I'm not sure if Carolyn had her hand up first or if it was you. I think it was you and then Carolyn, but you correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure, but I'll be quick. I just want to clarify something that was shocking to me when I first came on board some time ago, and thinking that I was representing the people, who voted for me and the people who didn't vote for me and the students. And I was shocked to find out that in information provided to trustees, it's emphasized that our loyalty as trustees is to the board, not our constituents, and that it's in our policies as well. So I walk a very fine line with that, as may or may not have been apparent over the years. It may be surprising to, those who aren't trustees or staff to take that in. Just a comment.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Okay, Carolyn, go ahead.
Hi. I just want to check you can hear me because I'm using new tech. Okay. Yeah, I think we all sort of watched this, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. The GVTA did write a letter because we were concerned with the process, certainly. But I do want to say that the one thing that I think everyone was unanimous about was the designated representation for the nations. And so the GVTA's perspective on the electoral boundaries was that if we're going to move forward in this timeline, which I do think was incredibly rushed, that considering, the amount of consultation, community consultation that is deserved when you're going to change an electoral system, if we were going to move forward, we would have much preferred to see two trustees from the nations, as they indicated that was their desire, and I think that's absolutely right and good, and then elect the remainder at large. Yeah, the task force, I think, was problematic. There was never any published agendas. We don't really know what happened at those meetings. And so we had partner meetings where we could sort of talk about it, but those weren't really any kind of decision-making meetings with any kind of, real import. So the task force meetings were very much behind closed doors, which I don't think is a really good method for decision-making. And speaking as a Saanich, citizen of Saanich, I do feel underrepresented by this electoral system. Certainly my vote will not be worth as much as someone's vote in View Royal or someone's vote in Esquimalt or Oak Bay. So that is problematic. So the whole system, I think, really does indicate like why it's so important to have elected trustees. And this happened at a time when we didn't have an elected trustee, and we had a very quick change to a very important system. So yeah, I think we are going to be living with this because, of course, the minister made their decision and made their order. And yeah, I recognize that. Doesn't mean that things can't change, but definitely I agreed with the perspective of Victoria municipality that the best system would have been to elect 2 trustees, reserve 2 seats for representatives of the nations, and continue to elect the rest at large. And I think one thing that will be very interesting in the next election is, I know I've spoken about this particular board as being one of the most diverse boards. I'd say the most diverse board Greater Victoria's ever elected for SD 61. And we've been talking to a lot of candidates coming forward, and I'll be very interested to see if the same kind of diversity happens when now we have 5 different first past the post elected boundaries. So yeah, I think it's a shame. That's the GVTA's perspective, but it is what it is. And if there's any sort of good to come out of it, it's certainly Songhees and Esquimalt representation. I think that's quite historic and hopefully has larger implications for electoral systems in Canada.
Thank you very much. And thanks very much for highlighting that positive element. And I think some of the changes and those in particular are heartening. Okay, I'm just going to go right through again, just double check that I haven't missed anybody, including my colleagues who might want to speak before I move us on. Okay. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the candor and the willingness to share the different perspectives this evening. And for those that are interested in finding out more, there is a link in the pack-up that takes you to the publicly available materials and includes information on the timeline and the process. Okay, so our next item is at C2BII, bylaw 9005, trustee elections. And I'm going to first turn the floor over to the Secretary Treasurer just to provide us some background.
Thank you, Chair. So just a reminder that Section 45 of the School Act requires boards to establish procedures governing the conduct of trustee elections. Trustee elections are conducted within a legislative framework that includes the School Act, the Local Government Act, as well as the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. In the agenda package are 3 versions of bylaw 9005. The original, which is the one that is currently in place, one that shows the track changes from the current one to the proposed revised bylaw, and then also the final revised bylaw. I just wanted to add some context around the draft that's being proposed to you. In preparation for the upcoming elections, BCSTA, or the BC School Trustees Association, worked with legal counsel to create a template for the bylaw. And in doing that, they encompassed all of the legislative changes. And so this was shared with all of the school districts across the province. In our school district, given that we had seen significant change with our electoral model, I actually reached out directly to that legal counsel once I had a draft using the template to ensure that we were capturing everything that was required for Greater Victoria School District for this bylaw. And so I did receive some feedback on what needed to be included or not. And so all of that is reflected in the proposed bylaw that is before you this evening. And I would say that the changes that have been incorporated would include the new trustee electoral area structure, all of the current legislative requirements, It incorporates administrative updates to election procedures that are applicable to each trustee electoral area. Previously, it was just one area. I'll also note that we have been aware that a bylaw needs to be passed by July 24th. That includes the public posting places. This is a new requirement for this election. That's as per the Local Government Act. And then, as mentioned previously, the full bylaw needs to be updated for the election as per the School Act by August 4th, 2026. So that is why the bylaw is back here again before you in order to meet those statutory requirements.
Perfect. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. And yeah, thank you so much for providing that additional context. I think that's super helpful. All right, trustees. So we have a couple of recommended motions, one of which, as the Secretary Treasurer pointed out, must be carried unanimously in order to complete all 3 readings of the bylaw this evening. But before I get into all of that, I just want to pause here because both trustees and partners might have some questions about the bylaw itself, and I think it might be helpful to surface those before we get into our debate or discussion about the bylaw. Okay, so I'm going to open the floor to partners if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts that you would like the board to consider in respect to the bylaw amendments. Okay, I don't see or hear, don't see any hands, and I don't hear anybody wanting to add anything. So I'm going to move to my colleagues and look. Well, first I'm going to read the first motion, and then I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Okay, so the first recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, agree to give all 3 readings of Bylaw 9005 trustee elections at the special board meeting on July 20th, 2026. Trustees, do I have a mover? Trustee Gagnon, thank you. And a seconder? A seconder? Just looking for a seconder. Trustees, would anybody like to second this? Trustee Bayo?
I was trying to, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It took me a while to get to you. Thank you. Okay, so it's moved by Trustee Gagnon and seconded by Trustee Bayo. Any discussion, trustees? And again, this is just to vote to do all 3 readings tonight. And that vote needs to be, again, unanimous in order to do all 3 readings this evening. Any discussion? Again, just interrupt me if I miss you as I cycle through through everything. I don't see anybody, so I'm going to call the question, but do please interrupt me if I've missed you. I'll just give you a second in case somebody does want to. Yeah, Trustee Gagnon, I see your virtual hand.
I had put it up earlier and then I took it down and then I forgot it wasn't up anymore. Just Chair, for a point of clarification about specifically why by-elections was struck from the bylaw. My interpretation of like trustee elections is the regularly cycled every 4 years, and then by-elections would be any special election that has to come up in the other 4 years. So I'm curious, I'm assuming legal counsel advised this, but why that? Because that seems to me like 2 different types of elections.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for the question. Secretary Treasurer, whenever you're ready.
Through the chair, my understanding is that trustee elections would cover both the general school election, which is the one that happens every 4 years, plus by-elections. So, and it does, there is a reference in the bylaw that says that it does apply to by-elections where applicable. So it's not removing by-elections from this, it does cover it. It just is using a more generic title of trustee elections, because a by-election is still a trustee election.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. And I believe in the clean draft, like the new draft, it does there's one line that does say or use the word by-election. So it is in there, however small. Yeah. Secretary Treasurer, do you want us to just go there? Yeah.
Through the chair, yeah, it's under scope of bylaw 1.1. It just says this bylaw applies to both general elections and by-elections, except as otherwise indicated.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer, and thank you, Trustee Gagnon, for the question. Okay. Trustee Painter, yeah, go ahead.
This is getting into the weeds, but that's my trademark. In section 12.1, public notice posting place, there's only 2 locations mentioned. One is the school board office and one is Saanich District. And that seems to be directly contrary to the entire spirit of the direction here, which is to create distinct trustee electoral areas. And I'd like to know, why are we not having a public notice posting place in every trustee electoral area?
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Painter. Secretary Treasurer, go ahead when you're ready.
Through the chair, this is a really good question and one I had as well with legal counsel. This section is the new requirement, and it is it needs to be there in case that the school district has to conduct the election themselves. They have to have public posting places. The legislation only requires that we have 2 locations identified in the bylaw. And so initially I was thinking I was going to have to find a public notice posting place for every single electoral area, but that is not what is required by legislation. So I was able to find one, which was actually more challenging than I had expected. But what happens is that under this model, if there is a by-election or if there is a requirement to have an election outside of the general school election, the public notice posting place would be within that trustee electoral area in which the election is occurring. And so legal counsel did clarify for me that all the public posting notice places for all of the trustee electoral areas do not have to be in the bylaw.
Thank you for clarifying that point. Yeah, as it reads, it sounds like there's just 2. Okay. Any other questions, comments, trustees? I'm just remembering that this is just about being able to have all 3 votes or all 3 bylaw readings this evening. We can get into more substantive discussion as we move through the next recommended motion. Okay, I don't see any more hands, so I'm going to call the question. Again, this is on whether we are going to complete all 3 readings of the bylaw this evening. All right, all those in favor with a show of hands, and again, please, trustees, just bear with me. Okay, Trustee Bio, you read my mind. All right, so that is unanimous with all trustees voting in favor of having all 3 readings this evening. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. We're going to move on to our next item. Secretary Treasurer, did you want to say anything in respect to the next piece here before I read it into the record? No? Okay. Okay, so the next piece is the recommended motion that the bylaw 9005 trustee elections be read a first time this 20th day of July 2026. And I think that's it. Thank you for writing it in a way that makes it very easy for me, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, so again, colleagues, this is another opportunity to have any discussion that you wish to have as we move our way through each of the readings. Any questions from anybody or comments? Yep. Trustee Gagnon, do you have your actual hand up?
I am moving that we do it.
Oh, good
before we
point.
get
It was
into
easier for me to read the bylaw, but we need a mover and a seconder. Wonderful. Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. And a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Is that trustee Kwan? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Oh, this is reminding me of the challenges of moving between screens. All right. Any discussion, trustees, now that we've established trustee Gagnon has moved and trustee Kwan is seconded? Yeah, trustee Kwan, go ahead.
I'll speak to the motion now rather than on our third reading. I mean, you know, we're at a place here where we have a ministerial order. You know, that's placing how the elections are going to be run. We should have a bylaw that aligns with that. And so I think this one does. So I will support it. Yes. Do I have some issues with perhaps how the process was done with an unelected board? Yes. I also see some really great things moving forward. With this too, where we have, you know, two, it's fantastic to see. So that's great. You know, all that comes with that, and you know, the process that was taken in order to bring this forward. So, you know, with that in mind, I'm going to support the motion. I do have concerns with some of it, but yeah, it is what it is.
Thank you, trustee Kwan. Any other trustee would like to speak to this part before I call the question on the first reading? Okay. I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, again, of the first reading of the bylaw. Just leave your hands up if you wouldn't mind, please. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay. So we've got the second recommended motion that the bylaw 9005 trustee elections be read a second time this 20th day of July 2026. And again, I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Trustee Gagnon moving again and trustee Kwan seconding. Thank you, folks. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor with a show of hands. And again, just leave your hands up if you don't mind. Okay, and that is unanimous again. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so we're going to move into our third and final reading that the bylaw 9005 trustee elections be read a third time, passed and adopted this 20th day of July 2026. Again, looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Gagnon, seconded by trustee Kwan. Any final discussion? Yeah, trustee Painter, go ahead.
Didn't want to disrupt the flow until now. Not really so much about the bylaws, the process and what it represents moving to a ward system effectively. It's been a privilege to be on this board. Honestly, I've really appreciated working with my fellow trustees. It's my third time on the board, so I've seen different variations, and have to say that this group has been so engaged. It's diverse in age as well as gender and interests and perspectives, and I think we've benefited significantly from all of that. And you know, in the end, the quality of the board is going to depend on who shows up as a candidate, and I don't see that being tied to where someone lives. You know, the proof will be in the pudding when we see what the election results are at the end. I do have concerns about limited representation in some areas. The idea that we will end up with you know, a much higher likelihood of acclamation than we would have in previous years, simply because there may only be a single candidate in an area. You know, for example, if I'm not mistaken, Esquimalt last election had one candidate within their riding, and they ran on an anti-SOGI platform. And so, you know, I got to say, I'm grateful that we were at an at-large system to be able to give people the opportunity to push back against bigotry. And yeah, that's just, it also bothers me that, you know, we're basically, a lot of these recommendations were coming from municipal governments. And municipal governments have never been stakeholders in the school district. It's always been the parents and the students. And it's their views and perspectives that I believe are most appropriate, most important. Now, I was the trustee liaison in Esquimalt, and I regularly sat with the mayor on her community roundtable, made connections with different organizations and community leaders through that. Was able to connect people to key staff in the district about a range of different initiatives. And so, in my mind, it was a little surprising that, so much was made of our lack of, engagement or representation in the communities when, if council had wanted, they could have called upon me, they could have called upon the chair or anyone else. But, in the game of politics, it's much better to write a snarky letter and get yourself in the newspaper. So I don't think that the motivation for some parties was, entirely focused on the well-being of students and our staff. I will echo Carolyn's comments about representation of the nations. I do see that as a positive step forward. But in general, it'll come down to who shows up. And, my fingers crossed on that one. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Painter. Trustee McNally, go ahead.
I'm behind what Trustee Painter has said. So, given that we're kind of boxed in to approving this, I'll approve it, but with a lot of misgivings.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Any other trustees who would like to speak? Sorry, Anave, we're just at a point where it's just trustees and yeah, unfortunately, I can't go back to partners now. Trustees, just don't want to rush you. I know this is an important item from a number of perspectives. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay. Okay, so I think I've made my concerns known, and I think we will celebrate the victories and the positives that we can out of what has occurred here. That doesn't, for me, change the serious misgivings I have about what has occurred. But I agree that at this point, this is a procedural item because the decision is not ours. It's the Minister of Education who made the decision ultimately. And our job is to do what we are doing this evening, which is to ensure that there's an up-to-date bylaw in place in a timely fashion. Yeah, just want to say thank you very much to my colleagues for your consistent professionalism at the table. Okay, so I didn't see any other hands, so I'm going to call the question on the third reading. All those in favor with a show of hands. And if you wouldn't mind just leaving them up while I check. All right, and that is unanimous. Thank you again, trustees. Okay, I'm going to move us on to our next item. And that is C, the High Caledonia Truck Turnaround SRW bylaw. And I'll turn the floor over to the Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you, Chair. As noted previously and in the memo on page 106 of the agenda package, the first and second readings of this bylaw were carried June 15th. But the third reading was defeated by poll vote. So that's why this is coming back to the board again today. There was some additional information that was requested by trustees since that meeting. We have included some additional information in the memo as well for context. I'll just highlight a few things. For one, the deadline for the statutory right-of-way to be registered on title was initially July 15th. That was subsequently extended to July 31st. And the current statutory right-of-way needs to be amended to reflect the as-built condition of the building. So the building structure overhangs the statutory right-of-way that was previously approved. Just to clarify, the statutory right-of-way is fully on the lands that are leased to CRHC for the Caledonia housing development. The statutory right-of-way forms part of the driveway to the building. So it's not on the school site and it has no impact on the school site. And just highlighting as well that the statutory right-of-way is actually shrinking in size. So it's shrinking from 65.1 square meters to 17.5 square meters, which is in favor of the Board of Education. So in this case, I have included the copy of the full bylaw in the agenda package. Section 68.3 of the School Act allows the reading of a summarized bylaw. It is still a little bit lengthy. It is included in the memo as well as on the agenda. And as with the previous bylaw, it does require a unanimous approval to do 3 readings this evening.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, so just to clarify, the information in the pack up is not just for information. It's also potentially to move the bylaws again. And so I'm just going to turn to my colleagues to seek your direction about how you would like to proceed. Trustee Kwan, go ahead. Sorry, Trustee Kwan, we lost your video. Trustee Kwan?
Apologies, I have a very low network bandwidth. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you can hear me? Okay, great.
Go ahead.
That's why I've turned my video off. I apologize.
No problem. We've been there as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. So, you know, from my perspective, this is a 60 to 65 year lease, and you know, I don't see any benefit to students anytime soon for doing anything further than what we've already done. To me, this looks like something, you know, the CRHC has built an overhang that shouldn't be there, and they're looking for us to correct that. And, you know, I said this previously, and I will say it again, you know, Vici students have given up a lot of land for the CRHC. And, you know, if we were going to move forward this, I would like to see, you know, how students are going to benefit from this. So, you know, from my perspective, I'm not, my vote would be the same as it was previously. So I don't know that I would support going through this again if it's going to come with the same outcome, but I'm happy to defer to colleagues and hear partner perspectives as well on moving forward with this.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Trustee Gagnon, go ahead.
Through the chair to my colleague, I don't know what the detriment to the students would be, seeing as this is a 60-some odd year lease where this is entirely on the lease property. Like, I see this as a relatively routine procedural thing. We sign off on it and it goes away. Like, I don't see where this is going to be detrimental to our students either. If it was on Vici land, sure, but I'm not seeing why we can't just pass this one.
Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. Okay, so the options today, if we are ready to engage with this, we can do that tonight. If we're not, we can look to some other procedural ways to dispense of this when we are ready, through poll vote, for instance. So I'm at your disposal if you're ready to dispense of this tonight, and if we're not, then I suggest we move on to our next item. So I'm not seeing any hands. I suggest we will move on to the next item, and then when we're ready to move this forward, then we will. And thank you, Secretary Treasurer, for just updating everybody on the current status and timelines associated with this item. Okay, so that brings us to D. This is question period, and this is a 15-minute period for folks to ask questions. Requesters can ask one question per requester. If I can't answer it, I'll defer to staff to see if they can answer the question. If neither myself nor staff can answer the question this evening, then what we'll do is we will come back to the requester via email with the answer when we have it. Any other rules that I've missed? And it's 15 minutes as well. So if we have more questions than we can get through in 15 minutes, then we just do them in order of receipt and try our best to get through as many as we can. Okay, with all that said, I'm going to turn to the Deputy Superintendent who usually assists me with this item, if that's the case tonight. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, there was just one question, and I have forwarded that to you, Chair.
Thank you. Let me just have a look here. Okay. Okay. I think, okay, so it looks like there's perhaps two questions here. So I'll just read the first one. Okay, policies not only inform the board's staff and public on what and how the school district will act in specific situations, they also help create and solidify the culture of the district. Many of the removed policies indicate values and beliefs held by the district, especially the 6000 series. How will these pieces be noted and carried forward to the new board? Okay, so yeah, I can perhaps answer the question from like the board perspective, and then I might turn to the Secretary Treasurer and the Superintendent to see if there's anything else that they would like to add from the staff perspective. But certainly from the board perspective, we have asked staff to put together information related to policies that have either been changed or abandoned in our absence so that we can review the current status and decide the appropriate way forward. We're certainly intent on first and foremost meeting with partners to have some discussions and work through what was done, and then deciding on appropriate next steps, in part depending on that feedback, but also depending on our own consideration of each of the policies. Secretary Treasurer or Superintendent, did you have anything that you wanted to add in relation to that question?
If I may, Chair?
Please.
Thank you. I think that's, I agree with your answer. I think in addition to that, there is the opportunity to look at the 13 core policies and infuse District 61 culture and context into those. There's also opportunity to add additional policies that speak to the culture. So I think through the partners meeting in August, as well as upcoming ed policies and public board meetings, there'll be plenty of opportunity to ensure that policies, whichever ones go forward or remain, speak to the culture of the district that the board wishes to see.
Thank you, Superintendent. Okay. And there was no other questions, Deputy Superintendent? No? Okay. Okay, so that brings us to the public disclosure of in-camera items. And Secretary Treasurer, I made my own notes of the public disclosures of in-camera items. Did you want to me just to go off my own notes, or did you? Yeah, okay. Okay, so there were two this evening. The first is, and I'll just read this into the record, that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria authorized the public disclosure of the following statement at the July 20th, 2026 special board meeting. The school district has entered into a use agreement with Urban Rec Society regarding the artificial turf field at Spectrum Community School. The agreement includes a contribution from Urban Rec Society toward the construction of the fields, specifically the installation of permanent lighting, and sets out the terms and conditions governing Urban Rec Society's use of the facility. And then the second public disclosure of in-camera items is that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent or delegate that an FAQ be created, including information shared via school messenger, posted on the website around the parking spaces and tree removal at Willows Elementary. And that was it. Secretary Treasurer, did I miss anything, or is that everything? It was just the two, wasn't it? Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that leads us to new business or notice of motions. For this, I'll look to my colleagues if you had any new business or notice of motions that you wanted to announce this evening. Okay, don't see any. And that, the final item on our agenda is adjournment. I'll look to my colleagues for a mover and a seconder with our thanks for everyone taking time out of your summer to help us dispense with some of these items this evening. So thank you. And moved by, motion to adjourn, moved by Trustee Gagnon. I mean, it's tradition at this point. And the seconder? Seconded by Trustee Carmichael. All those in favor with a show of hands? And I think that's unanimous. Trustee Bio, did you want to vote on adjournment? Are you in favor?